So hello, wow. Welcome to our first live EcoFest 2020 conversation. I'm really glad that you're here today. If you want to ask a question, post them in the comments and I'll try my best to answer them either now or later on in the day. If you're on Twitter, use the hashtag EcoFest2020 and we're on at St Ed's and St James as well if you want to join us there. Please do be patient if there are any technical issues along the day. I can't pretend that I'm any kind of technical expert, but I'm hoping, and this is a massive technical challenge, but I'm hoping that we're getting there with it. So I'm absolutely massively delighted to be joined today for our first EcoFest interview with Councillor Emily Rolls from Moss Side.
Hello.
Hi Emily, it's great to see you. Moss Side, sadly over the years, has been afforded a reputation that doesn't really reflect the amazing community and diversity that is in the area. And so it's really good to have Emily with us today to showcase a fantastic initiative that's happening in Moss Side that has the potential to really improve the local area, to bring people together and to impact on the environment, which is something we're all obviously really keen on. So Emily, welcome. Thanks for joining me today and for being my first interviewee. You're like my guinea pig.
Bye.
So first of all, Emily, just tell us a bit about who you are, what your interests are and that kind of thing.
So, well, the first thing I want to say is thank you so much for putting this together. I think it's absolutely vital that even in these bizarre times that we live in, that we're still able to have these conversations and still able to engage with people as best we can. And equally, none of us are technical professionals, we're all just trying our best. So I'm just really thrilled that this is going ahead and that there's still ways that we can keep this conversation going. I suppose a bit about me. So I live in Moss Side with my 2 children, and I'm really passionate about action and resident-led action. And I also, as well as being a local councillor, so I was elected in 2014, I also work for a trade union, so it's all about getting that voice together and speaking with a unified voice and the way that you can affect change through unity. And one of the mottos of the union movement is unity is strength. And I find that it's such a brilliant blueprint for everything that we're trying to do, especially in terms of the environment and in terms of speaking truth to power in that sense and trying to get people to listen about these things. But there are a couple of other things as well. So I'm also a very proud member of Amnesty International, which is the same principles. Liberty, again, the same principles. And I've been a vegan for, gosh, since I was about 26. So I'm also a very passionate cyclist, and our children's primary mode of transport is by bike on a bike trailer. So I'm also kind of an active participant in these things as well, and I'm always trying to figure out ways to make things easier to give people the choice if it's something they want to explore. I worry a lot about people being kind of pushed into something that's not suitable for them. So it's one of the things about having the children on the bike trailer is that you are very conscious of traffic and the safety of cyclists. And I've spoken to lots of other people who do it. You'd be surprised the number of people who actually do it, who get their kids in a bike trailer instead of having a car, or put them on a seat. There's all sorts of solutions. People either already know about it, which is great, or just wouldn't assume it was safe, wouldn't assume there was a way to do it. And what I really want to do, especially around cycling in Moss Side, and kind of in the city in general, but especially obviously Moss Side because that's where I live and it's where I represent, is to just make sure people have access to this information about how you can do these things safely. You know, it doesn't even have to be. So one thing about this as well, about the environment, about ecology, about taking care of the place that you live and loving where you live, and in a wider sense than the planet is, it actually doesn't have to be all or nothing. So if you can do 3 journeys on a bike where you would have done a car, that is a massive improvement on doing 5 journeys by car. And although I happen to be quite an all or nothing person and very committed, that gives me the kind of ability to be able to show people the stages that you can do things in. So another thing might seem like a small thing to some people and a really big thing to other people is we only use reusable things in our household in terms of the children. We have no disposable wipes, no disposable nappies. And before I did it, I would have thought it was impossible. How, on top of everything else, could you, as well as having 2 young children, how could you not just, clean them up and put it in the bin? And there are obviously other considerations around it. It's not 100% a perfectly ecological solution, but it absolutely reduces landfill. But I know lots of people that mix the two. And so for every single time you don't throw a disposable nappy in the bin, it doesn't go to landfill and it doesn't contribute to that immense problem. So although ideally we would be in a situation where these were easy choices that everyone could make all the time, it's also about making that small choice that's right for you without, obviously the other thing that I'm really passionate about as a person, as an individual and a resident is as individual citizens, our individual decisions are important. Absolutely, they're very important. But let's not forget who the real polluters are and who the real contributors to the issue are. So, I absolutely want us to all take our individual actions and to do it because it's the right thing to do and because it makes for a better, more sustainable environment. We absolutely have to keep the pressure up on the top global polluters and the top global contributors to these issues. So I think that's quite a bit about me, actually.
Well, that is absolutely brilliant because there's loads in there, Emily, and that's really, really good. And we're talking a lot about some of the things that you've mentioned already during the day. So you mentioned about being a vegan. So at 2:15, we've got an interview with somebody who runs an initiative or is part of an initiative promoting veganism and encouraging people to try it for 22 days. So there's something there. And at 3 o'clock, we've got a big cycling conversation. And Emily, you know from Twitter.
Yes, yeah.
My cycling adventures because I'm a very new cyclist. So I too am thinking about, the children on the bike and that kind of thing. I would feel quite nervous about that, and I'm sure some of our watchers would too. So it's really important to get those messages out and to see how we can work together to encourage people and to reassure people that it's safe and also make it as safe as we can as well in our race.
Absolutely,
so, fantastic things there. But we're here today mainly to talk about the amazing Moss Side Climate Emergency Group.
Yes.
So Emily, tell us about what it is, how it started and what its purpose is.
So it's, I love it. You can tell my face after when I talk about it. So what happened was that the council declared a climate emergency last year, and this was a motion that was put forward to council by two of my Labour comrades, and it was passed, and that's basically meant that Manchester has declared a climate emergency. Part of that was the responsibility that every ward in Manchester would hold a climate emergency meeting with residents. So there were really two ways that you could go about doing that. One was to have a meeting that was run by council officers, and obviously our council officers are doing this alongside lots of other things as well. So there could be quite a wait for that, and it's although those meetings have been really good as well. What I wanted to do was go down the second route, which is kind of do it ourselves. As you've probably gathered, and most people know from me, I'm quite a do-it-myself person. And I thought that the one thing that sets us apart here in Moss Side is our people. We have got an absolutely amazing, incredible, diverse group of residents who are just so passionate about all of the various bits of the climate emergency. And we also have some absolutely fantastically switched on young people. And so what I was hoping for is if we call a meeting ourselves, which you completely can do, there's nothing to say that you have to do one or the other, and whatever works, you know, people will know their ward best and will know what will work for them best. So what I wanted to do was get together as many different people as possible from across the different stakeholders. So the really important thing to me was that we are able to get together a kind of driving force of ideas for how we can make this work for us here in Moss Side. And although the work that's going on with the council is absolutely vital and really important, what I wanted to do was bring it down to a much more local level, in some cases a street by street level, so that residents feel really empowered to take action and ownership about what they want to see. And so what we did was we held our first public meeting that was unfortunately delayed due to the surprise election that was called. This has been a little while in the making, of fits and starts trying to get this going. We called an open meeting, and the principles of that first meeting are that you have to have a stake in Moss Side. What that means can be different things, but I didn't want to exclude people who feel very passionately committed to the area, but may not necessarily have a Moss Side postcode or address. What I wanted was people who feel that they have something to offer, something to contribute, and want to see a benefit for the ward. So I termed it as having a stake in the ward. That could be businesses, schools, youth providers, it could be residents, it could be that you run an organisation that operates out of here. So we had that meeting, and we wanted for the first meeting, which was amazing because Grace, she was so wonderfully spoke at it to show how it's wonderful, because having real people talking to each other, which is what our meetings are, about the changes that they've made and the impact that they can have, that's what's really inspiring about this. So Grace, you spoke about the Eco Church and the Eco Church movement and what benefit we've had here from that. And my ward comrade Mardi Sharif Mohammed spoke as well about the climate emergency and how how important it is to make sure that it accurately, that the actions we're taking accurately reflect the people that live here. I don't like things to be top down. I like them to be bottom up, and I like residents to understand very quickly how this will help them, or very quickly tell me how it won't and what will work instead. And that's also really important, is people having that ability to say, well, actually, I don't want that here. What I want is something else. Can we do that? Or speaking to a neighbour and saying, well, hang on a second, you know how to do this, I know how to do that. Let's work together and bring this project. So we have a huge list of tasks that came out of that, and we've been basically working through them. The point of it for me was to get a climate action plan that I could put on our ward plan. So this wasn't something that I don't know whether this is what's happened in other areas, But what we did here was every ward in Manchester has a ward action plan, and it prioritises the work that you want council officers to attend to in your ward over the year. So what we have as one of the first priorities, it's the number one priority, is to enact the Moss Side Climate Emergency Action Plan. And then out of that, we have a plan that can be quite fluid, but that has specific measurable outcomes that council officers who support Moss Side can work on throughout the year. So that's how we get the council resources in the neighbourhood team, who I have to say have been absolutely fantastic and just immediately understood why we wanted to do it. Our neighbourhood officers, they have worked so hard to get this together, to get the background information together. Without them, we would not have been able to get this side. So a massive thank you to Aya, Rich and Sally for getting this, the council side of it together. The other side of it is the resident actions. So what we have is a list of actions that that residents came up with, that residents want to see and that residents can take ownership of. And they range from things like bringing in like safer streets for children to play in, to getting rid of so much traffic that there is in Moss Side that's like
Yes.
commuter traffic, to making the park a nicer place to be. So we've got some actions from there that residents are working on that everybody has just been floored by the by coronavirus and the pandemic. But we have still been able to see some action taking place. Sorry, the glare on my glasses.
No, don't worry about it.
So we've still been able to see some actions taking place. It's nowhere near as much as I wanted to do by this point. But we're also, because we're a resident-led group, it's also based on how much residents feel they can contribute. So we've got the council side, which is constantly working on the aims that we've set out, and we've got the residents group, which is more based around small projects that people want to achieve. And that is a running list of things that people can do. So we've also got a fantastic, I've got to say, absolutely brilliant resource. I'm going to plug her, Lisa, who is the head of the Powerhouse, who again just immediately gets why this is so important and puts it at the centre of what she's doing at the Powerhouse. So she's organised litter picks in conjunction with the youth work that she does. We also have some amazing, fantastic youth workers who have brought young people in droves to contribute towards this. And we're also very fortunate that our schools in the area, also the teaching staff just immediately get why this is something, and the children as well. Obviously, I think the children and the teaching staff grasping this go hand in hand, because this has been very much pushing an open door with the schools and with young people. So one of the actions that we've had has been to organise like a young person's eco weekender, which obviously we haven't been able to do, and with social distancing, who knows whether we're going to be able to do it. But you know, we've got other options at the moment. We're working out technological ways of doing things. So I think hopefully we should be able to see some fruition on some of these things too.
Emily, this is just so fantastic. And I remember the first meeting that we had in St James's, and what was really clear about it was that it was resident driven, that and you know, like people who had a stake in the area with that, and we had such a diverse gathering of people. We had young people, we had, you know, a couple of students, we had all kinds of, you know, people from different backgrounds and things, which was made it really feel like it was a Moss Side meeting for Moss Side residents, which was absolutely fantastic. Obviously the pandemic has floored everybody, and as you've said, there are some things that we've not been able to do, but there is still very much a passion within the area, and a growing passion as we see what's happening around the world, as well as in our local area, for addressing some of these issues. And I know there'll be residents watching. How can they get involved, Emily, with what's going on?
So just first thing is to just drop me either an email or DM me on Twitter, anything like that. I'll pop you on the mailing list. And then what we're trying to do is arrange a series of online meetings. So we had our first one. I'm not going to pretend it was brilliant. It wasn't my favourite meeting we've ever had. I've got to say.
We're all learning though, aren't we?
We are learning, yes. And this is the thing, I hope people won't be put off, because the sooner we can get back to that sort of working groups, working with each other, working with our neighbours, I think the better for us here. but I'm also conscious of the exclusion that there is online. So while for some people it's very intuitive and very easy to access online technology, there are various people who don't want to, can't do it, haven't got the internet. Lots of people in Moss Side don't actually have broadband in their houses. So I'm very conscious of that as well. So, but in the meantime, sorry, you might be able to hear my daughter shouting.
Oh, that's great.
in the meantime, what we can do is join the mailing list. There's a working list of actions that we can be getting on with. Some of them are individual actions, some of them are personal commitments. The main drivers the main things that I'm looking at and that I'd love people to help me with are around reducing cars in the area, reducing street traffic. And one of the ways we can do that is by setting up the play streets. Obviously, with the pandemic, again, that's up in the air whether we can actually do that. But if you can get the more information about it, talk to your neighbours about it, we can get that set up for when we're ready to start. And the other one for me is around carbon emissions from houses. So a lot of our housing stock is older. Sometimes it's 100 years old. We've got a lot of peer-led information and expertise from the housing associations for what you can do to make your house more energy efficient and eco-friendly. And some of these, again, some of it needs national funding, some of it there used to be grants available for that there aren't anymore. So we recognise the limitations of this, but again, having access to that information, so when we're ready to go, we can get straight in there. So drop me an email or contact me online, or if people would rather go through you, if you don't mind.
I don't mind, no.
You can pass details on.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, absolutely, and your details, particularly your Twitter, are on the last slide of our last programme, but I think that we'll also try and get them sort of put in the comments as well, so that people can contact you. You know, it's the wonder of live stream, isn't it, when you've got young children? It is, so don't worry about that at all.
I love this so much. They come and say hi usually.
That's great. Well, they can say hi if they want to, it's not a problem. There'll be other people, obviously, who don't live in Moss Side or the other surrounding area, who are thinking, this sounds amazing. I'd really like to have a voice in my own community. I'd really like for there to be some kind of action group in my own community. What would you say? What would you say they should do? How can they get involved themselves?
So the Climate Emergency Motion says that every ward in the city should be having some kind of climate emergency forum. Clearly, we cannot do that in real life. Yes. But local councillors are a good person to talk to about the work that's going on. So not everywhere has a forum that's kind of set up in the way ours is. Sometimes it is a resident group, sometimes it's connected to local councillors, but what local councillors often have is a knowledge of the organisations that exist in the area. So regardless as to whether it's being driven by a sort of council officers or whether it's resident led, local councillors should have that. People can also contact me, and I'm more than happy to put them in touch with the people for their area, and I'm happy to share ideas and information. The other thing you can do is start it yourself if there isn't something, and you don't have to be a councillor or involved in party politics or anything like that. If you are passionate about this, you can bring it up in so many ways, through residents forums, through the other organisations that exist. There are Manchester-wide organisations, there are sort of region-specific ones. There is a huge amount of information about how you can set these things up. The issue for me has always been, how do we make sure that local residents are benefiting from these things? So the best way is for residents to tell us what they want. I don't know anybody who is a local representative who doesn't want to hear from their residents. And if it's something that you're passionate about, we can take that forward. That's our job, is to make things better for people and to know what people want to see. So if you're telling us that's what you want, that's ideal for us.
So really, basically, speak to your local councillors if you can, but also, like you said, if you want to, you can set something up yourself. I'm going to be speaking later to Whalley Range Climate Action Group, who are a group of residents in Whalley Range who did just that. They just set up their own climate action group, set up on Facebook, had meetings, and so there are ways in which you can do it yourself as well, which is fantastic, and it's resident led, which is absolutely brilliant. Right, we've got a few minutes left, Emily, and I want to ask you this final question. So I want you to imagine, just dream about what you would love Moss Side to be like in 5 years' time. What would your dream for Moss Side be?
So that is a lot. I really want us to be 5 years into a radical climate change agenda here. I want us to be 5 years into seeing the benefits of all of the things we've talked about. The biggest things for me are reducing traffic and the ways that we're doing that. So I hope we'll be 5 years into the residents' parking scheme that we're bringing into the top of Moss Side, the practical side of it. And what I desperately want for people is for everybody to feel like Moss Side is a place they love to live and be. That means different things to different people, and it's by working together that we achieve that kind of vision for everybody. I want this to be a place that people that reflects our diverse communal based culture, with communal spaces that are in regular use. And I just hope that we're back to being able to do that by then. Everything is tinged by the pandemic and everything is you know, up in the air. But I hope that within 5 years' time, we'll be back to having these just amazingly productive group kind of sessions where we can all get together and share our ideas.
I hope so too, Emily.
I know.
Emily, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk today. It's been brilliant. Your details, like I say, will be on the end slide of our end video, but we'll also, I'll put some things in comments too. And do keep the conversations going. It's been brilliant to hear from you today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace.
Let's